Hi guys, welcome back to Planet Mithril. My name is Mithril, and today I'm super excited to bring you my take on how to paint the Scarlet Witch Wanda Maximoff. The Scarlet Witch, one of my favourite characters from Marvel and the MCU. I am super excited to be able to bring her to you in a painting tutorial today. Now the Scarlet Witch, this particular sculpt, is a lot different to a lot of the other models I've tackled on the channel before. There's a lot of smooth, flatter surfaces here, particularly in her clothing, her skin, her exposed skin, which either you paint as tights or as actually exposed skin. The only real areas of movement tend to be towards the back of the model, including her hair and her cloak. And let's not forget that massive swirling chaos energy behind her, which I've actually kept separate for the purposes of painting, just for the to make it a little bit easier on my poor little brain. But I'm going to be showing you here how to balance a variety of different reds across Scarlet Witch, a slightly more orangey auburn for her hair, a slightly more pink tones for her cloak and her magic behind her, and the intense reds of her outfit, to hopefully give you a model that looks unified and consistent on the tabletop without any of the reds becoming too overpowering. As I said, I've kept the magic separate from Wanda for the time being, just so I can start painting her, but both of these have been undercoated prior to painting with Citadel Mechanica Standard Spray. Brushes ready guys, let's get painting. All of her exposed skin is getting a base coat using basic flesh. This includes her face, arms, legs, and around her neckline and shoulders. Her long flowing hair is now being base coated using Indian Shadow, making sure to get up, all underneath for equal coverage of all of it. Her corset, gloves, boots and headpiece now are being given a thorough base coat using deep red. This will need a few coats to make sure the colour and tone is strong and smooth over all these surfaces. Finally, her billowing cloak is being given a 1-to-1 base coat mix of fuchsia and deep red. I'm trying to make this subtly different to the rest of my reds, mainly to keep some visual appeals to the model and not end up with too much of the same red, which would ultimately overbalance poor Scarlet. The skin is being given a manual shade using a 2-to-1 mix of pink flesh and Indian Shadow. I'm focusing this in the recesses of her facial features, undersides of the legs and arms, and grooves, curves and clenches in her physique. I'm going over Scarlet Witch's skin now with a blinking layer using basic flesh, keeping this slightly diluted so I can manoeuvre the paint around her with ease. A lot of her exposed skin is smooth and flat, so I want this to be as unblemished as possible for the best overall effect. I'm continuing to build up the tone of her skin and the structure of her delicate facial features with a 2-to-1 mix of basic flesh and pale skin. Her features are very soft, so you can see I'm trying to take extra care to pull out as much detail over her brow and cheekbones as possible. I'm letting the shape of her physique guide my brush, reinforcing the blend from the shaded parts of Wanda's skin. I'm continuing to add pale skin into my mix and highlight up Wanda's skin gradually until I reach my final edge highlight stage where I'm now using pure pale skin, focusing on the sharper, more prominent parts of her facial structure, nose, brow line, cheekbones and chin, and finishing off framing the parts of her body which are more directly focused towards my light source. Her eye recesses are now carefully picking out using black. We're finishing these off with 2 dots of white either side. Wanda's hair is being given a shade using some heavily diluted Arbuckle's brown, working this into all the recesses and grooves between the strands of hair and breaking up any pooling. I want to build up a really striking auburn burnt orange colour for Wanda's hair. Once my shade is dry, I'm applying a layer to the hair by adding Mars orange into my Indian shadow base coat. Gradually at first, and at this stage I'm just focusing on separating out the individual hairs and building in texture. Okay, so now I have a really rich, natural looking auburn base for Scarlet Witch's hair and some really lovely shading throughout. I'm going to work on building up the highlights to add some shine and more body to her flowing locks. I'm doing this by gradually adding in basic flesh to the previous mix and a rough 3-to-1 ratio mix. You can see how I'm letting my brush follow the flow of her hair and keeping my application tight and precise for a really authentic look. For the upper level highlights, it's as simple as just continuing to add more basic flesh into the mix until you reach a point you're happy. By the time I've reached my final highlights, you can see I'm just focusing on the outer curls and tips of her hair, further reinforcing the movement within it. All of her red clothing, corset, boots and gloves mainly, is being given an all-over shade with a rough 3-to-1 ratio mix of deep red and black, diluted with water to help it flow. Now it's crucial here to keep control of where this wash is going. The last thing you want is for it to leak out onto her finished, pristine skin. With my shade in place and dry now, I'm applying a blocking layer using a 1-to-1 mix of deep red and Aldebaran red. The Scarlet Witch needs to be scarlet, right? so I'm building up some lovely intense red tones for the majority of her clothing, letting the shade rest in any creases and recesses down the sides of any trim and underneath the curves of her body. I'm continuing to build up the structure and shape of her clothes and headpiece now using pure Aldebaran red. There's a lot more structure to Wanda's outfit compared to the more flowing material that I'm usually used to dealing with, so I'm just being a little more patient and targeted with my application over these lines. Now you can see I've got the main structure of Wanda's clothes in place, all the creases and folds further defined with my previous stage. For the highlights now, I'm going to start adding in pale skin to the Aldebaran red, again at a rough 3:1 ratio mix to begin with. Now my focus has shifted to just further framing all this detail and strengthening the blend from shadow through to light. A final extreme edge highlight is now being applied with a 1:1 mix of Aldebaran red and pale skin, just to make the upper folds and more pronounced line work pop a little bit more. The pale skin as an addition helps blend the red into the tone of the skin slightly and stops the contrast being too stark between them. The cloak is now being given a manual recess shade using red leather, working this into all the creases and folds of the billowing flowing material. I'm starting to build up the flow of the cloak material now by applying a layer using a 3:1 mix of the base coat mix and pink flesh. The pink flesh additions here will raise the tone a little more gently to that of the corset and the clothes, which hopefully means it will stand out a little more against the more vibrant reds. I'm raising the concentration of pink flesh in the mix to roughly a 50-50 split as I continue building up the flow of the material folds. Long, unbroken and consistent lines here are key for this particular cloak. There's a lot more movement to capture compared to the rest of her clothing. And it's simply a case of continuing to add more pink flesh into the mix as I continue to progress through the upper level highlights. Look at that beautiful movement in that flowing cloak, absolutely perfect. Okay, now it's on to that swirling mass of chaos magic which I haven't yet managed to tackle. Be careful as it's surprisingly springy and bouncy and might need a little bit of extra stabilising as you progress. I'm beginning by giving the whole thing a thorough base coat using fuchsia, making sure I get in all the nooks and crannies. I'm applying a shade now over all the magic using some heavily diluted blood red, again making sure to work this into all the recesses and grooves. With my shade now dry, I'm going to be layering up the swirls and mists of chaos magic using a 3-to-1 mix of fuchsia and 10-year yellow, focusing on breaking up the swirls, leaving the shade showing in the recesses and the inner edges as best I can. This will probably take a while as there's a fair bit of chaos here to deal with, so just take your time. With my lovely pink tone now in place, I want to bring up the tone relatively quickly, so to do this I'm going to be adding Mojave White into the previous mix and continuing to push my highlights towards the outer edges, tips, flicks and waves of all the magical swirls. And again, it's as simple as continuing to increase the amount of Mojave White in the mix until I'm at a rough 2-to-1 ratio split in favour of the white. The final stage needs to be applied as an extreme edge highlight or a dot highlight just to accentuate the outer points of glorious chaos. The Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, mutant, Empress of Magic and Queen of Chaos now finished and ready to deliver the power of Chthon to her enemies on the battlefield. I'm beyond happy to finally have one of my favourite Marvel characters finished for my Marvel Crisis roster. For basing hints and tips, please head on over and check out my Star Wars Shatterpoint bases tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to make sure you never miss a mithril upload. If you enjoy what we do, please consider supporting us on Patreon for as little as £1 a month. But if you really enjoy what we do, then the Treasure Trove tier gives you access to a host of online materials. Thank you so much to all of our patrons who continue to support us going forward. And until next time guys, take care and as always, happy hobbying. Bye guys.